call Dianne Anderson Valentin.
Greetings, everyone. Greetings. I bid you peace and blessings. Thank you. Mourning. I think all of us probably have a number of mournings that we could refer to, depending on how far back we want to go. Sometimes I think about, we have two sides. We have our mother's side and our father's side that we look back on. And I look back to my father's side, and my grandfather's mother was a black woman who was a white man fell in love with her. And because of everything that had transpired, during slavery and everything, it was really, she did not like white people. So no matter what his advances were, she turned him down. So no matter what he did, what he offered, marriage, she turned him down. So he raped her and produced my grandfather. And in that, I didn't know about that until one day I went to town with my grandmother, who married my grandfather. And we were watching a parade. My grandmother was a little tiny woman. She looked up at this man who was standing next to her. He was probably about 6'4", 6'5". And she just started at this man. And I'm little, like 4 or 5 years old, not knowing. And so she was like, "Come on, we're leaving." I was like, "What's this?" And so I was like, "Who was that?" She said, "It was your grandfather's brother." And he was white. Now, when you're that little, back in the 50s, in my community, you didn't hear the terms white, you didn't hear the terms black, you didn't hear any of that kind of terminology. You just were with your family. We had a very closed, I say this now because I didn't know then what I know now. But now I can say we lived in a very closed community of black and Jewish people. And I can say now that I know that we were suffering the same oppressions. That's why we were such a closed community. And so I found out when I was about 4, teaching myself to read, that my grandfather, my father's father, didn't know or didn't think enough of his education. Keep in mind that this man had a construction company, had businesses, had a lumber yard, had come through all kinds of stuff, had achieved more than a lot of people achieve today successfully. But I run into his den, he's working on his fishing tools, and I say, "Grandpa, what's this word?" He's like, "Get out of here," He didn't want me to know that he might not know that word when I showed it to him to ask him. So he would chase me out. And I'm like, "What is going on?" So growing up, you find out when you look back, but at the time, all you know is he didn't like me. He didn't want me to read, or something. So you go through that, and you find out that my grandmother, who had a pretty good life, was married to a man who was troubled in certain ways, took good care of his family, but he was troubled because of those mourning things that his mother had gone through. That even after he was born, my great-grandmother wouldn't take anything from this white man who had raped her. He still kept trying. When he died, he left my grandfather the same things in his will that he left his white sons with his white wife. And that, of course, apparently was a whole other issue. But these are the things that made him the way he was, made my grandmother, who loved him, angry with a group of people because she loved him and saw what he went through and the angst that he had over these things. So me being the observant child standing by and saying, what are these people doing, you know? Then you go on to my mother's side, and you have my great-great-grandfather, who was a white man who was in love with, who was enamored by this black woman that he saw. He would have his horse, he would be riding his horse home from work. She's standing on the side of the door waiting for her brother, and who would come by and pick her up, horse and buggy. And he had the nerve to stop and try to speak to her one day. And she pretty much berated him because, how dare you speak to me when we haven't been properly introduced? Because back then, you had to have a proper introduction. And she felt that he thought because he was white, that he could just talk to her, you know. And so she had to set him straight. And this is one of the love stories that comes down in my family. And her brother knew him. He knew her brother. So the next afternoon, he comes on his horse with her brother, and he's like, now we have a proper introduction, what you gonna do? You know. So he courts her. He tells his family he loves her and wants to marry her. His family tells him, if you marry her, you are dead to us, we will disown you, and you will not be buried with the family in the plot. And apparently back then, being buried in the family plot meant something. So he told them, and this is another story that comes down in our family, that if I cannot marry her, I may as well be dead. So that is the love that he had for her. So they did disown him, but they started their family, and they ended up acquiring more land and wealth than his family had. So, you know, that love helped them build together. So I have these kind of background stories in my life, and you see how they bring the people that you are interacting with, like mother and father, on a daily basis, and how they bring you up and how they protect you. But you don't know all of this when you're little. You just know you're in a very safe, secure, loving situation. My family fought integration for years. Our schools weren't integrated until probably 10, 15 years after Brown Board of Education, because they did not trust white teachers to teach us or care for us enough to want us, because education was so important. They wanted us to know things. They didn't just want us to go somewhere for 7 hours every day and come home. They wanted us to know things. So they fought it tooth and nail. We built our community built their own schools. My grandparents donated land for schools. The community brought bricks. You know, it was that kind of community. So when integration finally was forced by law, they actually had to take us to court, you know, take the community members, my parents and everybody to court to make us go to school with the white kids. So the agreement I think they worked out was because our schools were better built than theirs, and had better facilities than, our black schools had better facilities than the white schools in our community. And so they made it so that the white kids had to come to our school. We didn't have to go to their schools. We didn't have to go to their schools. So when they came to school with us, I was in 7th grade by then, and the white kids were like unruly. They were talking in class. They were like throwing paper, and you know, it's like, look, I'm here for a reason. You can take that nonsense out of here. And they were like, they were surprised to be getting that kind of thing from a student, you know, because that's how we went to school. We had fun at different times. We had recess, we had band, you know, all those kind of places to have fun. So, no, this is algebra. This is trigonometry. This is why we're here right now, you know. So they kind of settled in to how we functioned at our school. And it was good for us to have the exposure, but we didn't find it different because in the Black community, you have people who look like everybody and they're still Black, you know. So it was more them having to adjust to us than us having to adjust to them, you know. So I think a lot of myths were dispelled for them, and we were still waiting. We didn't really have any kind of myths to dispel because we didn't really care about them growing up. We didn't know about them. They weren't, you know,
Center of your universe.
right, exactly. Like when I grew up and went out, I found out that there are communities where white people were, you know, the center of people's universes, you know. And so my mom died when I was 11, and I think that was my mourning, you know, the you mourning. And that defined me a lot, because when I woke up that morning, I heard my grandmother telling people on the phone that she had passed away in the elevator on the way to deliver it, and the baby that she was carrying died with her. So at that point, I couldn't hear anything. So apparently I was psychologically deaf for like 3 days. And so I went and I sat in her car, and I could smell her perfume. It was August. Rolled up the windows so that I could just, you know, be with her. And banging on the window, I couldn't hear it. But then I saw the commotion. And all my friends, and that's the thing about being friends when you're kids, you know, you're growing up back then, everybody's outside, you know, you have friends, you know, when you're little. You roam the streets with, you know, you get in trouble with, everything. And I look over it, and all my friends are like banging on the window, calling, you know, mouthing at me. So I just still sat there, and then got my uncle, and he unlocked the car with the key, you know, because when you really don't think about that, you're thinking, I'm locked in, nobody can get me, you know. So, you know, he got me out, and it was the first time I saw my father cry. And it was the only time I saw my father cry. And I was like, I don't know what we're going to do. What are we going to do? Because she was an accountant. I thought she was, I tell the story sometimes because she was an independent person. She worked for friends who owned restaurants. She would do their taxes and stuff during tax time. So during tax time, we would go stay at my grandmother's house, and she would go to their restaurants after they closed, you know, so she could read books and stuff like that. So when she washed dishes, there would be steam coming up off the water. No, now that we're grown up, we can do that. But when you're little and you see all that hot water, I thought she was a superhero. So when she said, okay, it's tax time, so you're gonna have to go stay at grandma's house while and it was going out into the night, you know, so I'm like, she is a superhero. Whatever tax time is, that's when the villains are out. And she has to go handle this at tax time. You know, so as far as I was concerned, she was, and people like, you know, when you drive in the street, people actually stop the car to speak to her because she was such a nice person. That's what they tell us today. She died when I was 11, and I'm going to be 63 in May. So people still remember her as the nice person that she was and how she worked and helped the communities. My mourning is when I realized that I was going to end up in corporate after teaching for 7 years, teaching elementary school. And I ended up in corporate. And I found that there were young women who were going to work every day and just going to work every day. They had no plan. They got a job and they got a paycheck. There was no plan. There was no plan of, I'm going to go to work to move up with this corporation or this entity or whatever, or I'm going to work and learn this, that, and the other, or I'm going to work and save money and do this on my own as an entrepreneur. There was no plan. It was just, I'm going to work. I'm getting a paycheck in 2 weeks, and I'm doing it again. You know, so I would ask them, what are you going to do? What do you want to do? What do you need to do? How can I help you do it? Do you want to learn this? Because I'll tell you everything I know. I will teach you every single thing I know. I don't care what it is. If you want to know it, I'll teach it to you. And some of them wanted to. Some of them were like, I'm good, you know. But some of them really wanted to, and they are now doing really great things. You know, one young lady came into my office and she was crying. I said, what's the matter? She said, my child is sick, I have to go get them from school. I said, oh, and I'm thinking she's crying because it's like some grave thing has happened to her child. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is it? What can we do? And it wasn't so bad. But I said, well, why are you crying? She said, because I don't want to lose my job. I said, why would you think you would lose your job because you had to leave work to go take care of your child? She said, because the person who was here before you told me that that's what would happen. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but that's not how I'm doing this. Okay? But no, you won't lose your job. Go take care of your child. You know? So, the thing that I would tell them is real life happens. We are here doing a job, and until we all start respecting the fact that real life happens in the course of us trying to make a living, trying to get educated, and trying to take care of our families, we won't succeed and we won't prosper, we won't move forward. So one of the things that I think is my mourning is that I have a couple of generations now of young women, young people, because a lot of men seek my mentorship as well as young women. They understand that how you treat people in the workplace is as important as how you treat people anywhere else. You have to respect the fact that things happen. You can't hold threats over people. You have to understand that these kinds of things happen. People still need to work. They still need to have an income. And if them going home to take care of that child that one day is not going to sink your ship, then you shouldn't threaten them as if it is, you know. So I think that there's a group of young people that are in their 20s, 30s, and 40s that I have mentored who understand that you need to take care of people, just like you need people to help take care of you.
Very good, very good.